to Spotlight on Six Star Cruises. I'm your host, Karen Worrell, cruise and destination expert for Six Star Cruises. And in this special series, I'm exploring expedition cruising with Seabourn Cruises with my special guest, Robin West, who is the Vice President and General Manager of Seabourn Expeditions. This episode is all about cruising to all of the non-polar regions that Seabourn Expeditions sailed to. So let's take a look at where all of these itineraries are. So here we can see an overview of where Seabourn Expeditions go, as well as the Arctic and Antarctic voyages that we discussed in the previous two episodes. They also cover many other destinations around the world, including Alaska, South America, the Pacific, Polynesia, Melanesia, Micronesia, Asia, and Australia. So one of the best reasons to go on an expedition cruise is to get up close to the wildlife. When visiting South Georgia, the beach is a popular place to see wildlife, as it is just everywhere. Move over the hill and it is even more spectacular, as there are 500,000 king penguins huddled here in an immense rookery. Scoresby Sound is on the east coast of Greenland and has the world's largest fjord system. Seabourn Venture sails further into the Amazon than other ships, as many go all the way into Manaus, but they don't go further, and Seabourn Ventures goes all the way up to Iquitos. So getting further into this remote part of the world really immerses you into the Amazonian life with the wildlife, the people, and the culture here. The six-seater subs on board Seabourn Venture can dive down to almost 1,000 feet below the surface of the water, or 300 meters. Now this adventure takes you to whole new depths, literally. The submarines are encased in acrylic spheres, and these have the same reflective index as water. So this makes it feels like you're in the water when you're in them. Now, Robin said all the guests, they touch the windows as soon as they get in because the human eye actually struggles to see where the glass starts and the water ends. That's how good they are. So I worked for Seabourn doing the Amazon route on the Seabourn Quest and had some incredible experiences there. Like I went fishing for piranha, I saw Amazonian pink river dolphins in the wild, and went to an indigenous village, going out to see the prism and brown capuchin monkeys and agouti on Devil's Island in French Guiana as well. Going out on an expedition voyage with Seabourn takes you even further. Now, before we meet Robin from Seabourn again today, we're going to take a look at the stunning, specially designed expedition ship from Seabourn, the Seabourn Venture, and what makes it and its sister ship, the upcoming Seabourn Pursuit, the perfect ships to explore the remote corners of the world from. The Seabourn Venture is a beautiful ship with all the comfort and luxury you'd expect from Seabourn. There is the Expedition Lounge, perfectly designed to be conducive to sitting and making new friends on board and sharing your new travel and adventure experiences with. The Constellation Lounge is an ideal place to unwind. With floor-to-ceiling windows, you can still watch all the action off the ship while relaxing on board. The Contemporary Atrium is the centre of the ship, while the Spa and Wellness Centre with Dr. Andrew Wheel is the place to relax and rejuvenate after your adventures. There's even a sauna with a sea view. The Bow Lounge gives views of where you're heading, and Seabourn Square is, as always, a great place to catch up with the news and your fellow cruisers over a freshly tasty brewed coffee, and the restaurant is elegant as always with unsurpassed service and food from the daily changing menu of international cuisine. The Colonnade is ideal for a more relaxed meal at any time of the day, while the club is the venue for entertainment in the evening with live music, including the band, playing multiple music genres throughout the evening to keep the atmosphere going. Venture and Pursuit have all veranda and all oceanfront suites, making sure you always have a personal view of all the action outside. Now that we've seen the ship, let's welcome back the man behind Seabourn Expeditions. I have my special guest for this series back with me again today. And today Robin is going to tell us about Seabourn's expeditions to the non-polar region cruising itineraries. So hi Robin, thank you for joining me again. How are you today?
Very well. Thank you, Karen. How are you?
Good, thank you. So I'm going to ask you some more questions today. And today we're going to focus on the Amazon and more, on different expedition cruises with Seabourn. So we'll start off with this. Expedition cruising with Seabourn is most known for sailing to the Arctic and Antarctic, but you do have a lot of other exciting destinations too. So, can you tell us a little bit about some of the other places that you go to?
Yeah, for sure. So, to your point, typically speaking, expedition travel is what comes to mind for most people is the polar regions, the Arctic or the Antarctic. But beyond that, there are phenomenal destinations in tropical areas. So, for example, we'll be taking Seabourn Venture into the Amazon. We'll be exploring high into the Amazon, past Manaus, exploring tributaries, looking for wildlife, doing zodiac tours, kayaking in the early morning, late afternoon to kind of leverage the coolness of the day to have the best opportunity to see wildlife. Other areas we're going to visit is when we launch Pursuit, we're going to head across the Pacific. So we'll be visiting a lot of the Polynesia, Melanesia, Micronesia, a lot of the Pacific islands, looking at different types of culture, interaction, opportunities for water sports, snorkeling, swimming, scuba diving, all that kind of stuff. The plan is also to, at a later stage, head over to Australia into the Northern Territory area between Darwin and Broome, a region known as the Kimberley, and obviously explore the Kimberley. There's some fantastic zodiac cruises. There's some incredible phenomena that take place in the Kimberley due to tidal changes. There's the different types of art and rock formations. There's a handful of other destinations around the world, warm weather destinations that are really well suited for expedition in terms of engaging in natural history and culture.
Absolutely. And that's amazing. There are a lot of areas that I have personally absolutely loved there. And I've been with Seabourn to the Amazon, only as far as Manaus, though. So I would love to go back on an expedition cruise all the way up to Iquitos. And also, the islands of Polynesia are incredible. And as you say, the culture there, the history, just getting in the water, there's so much to do there. It's really exciting. And Australia as well, the Kimberley area is an incredible part of the world, and the wildlife there is just amazing. And Darwin with the Australian saltwater crocodiles, I love them, they're my favourite crocs. It's wonderful. Okay, my next question is, what do you think are some of the main appeals in these places? Do you have maybe one tip for each of the destinations, like you mentioned, the Amazon, Polynesia, and the Kimberley region of Australia?
So, Karen, I think what makes some of these places special is I think what's really an underlying theme that makes places like the Amazon, like the Pacific, like the Kimberley special is like with many things with expedition travel. It's areas you can't get to very easily. It's really areas you can only get to by ship. To be totally honest, there's no roads, there's no aeroplanes, there's no other ways of getting into these areas. So one of the big appeals and the attractions to these destinations is obviously the remoteness in terms of where they're situated. But the Amazon, it's home to an incredible abundance of wildlife and a unique amount of wildlife. Exploring some of the lesser known tributaries, looking for sloths, looking for an array of bird life. The wildlife I think in the Amazon is really what's very attractive in terms of going into these remote places and almost like an African safari, taking the zodiacs, exploring and looking for various types of wildlife. For me, in French Polynesia, Melanesia, it's really about the culture. It's fantastic to move through the islands as you move through, whether it's the Solomons, Fiji, Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea, and you see how the culture changes as you move through these islands, how steep traditions like the Kula Ring, the Kula trade, cultural dances, cultural performances. And what's amazing is to see the level of interaction and engagement when you visit these remote communities with our guests. Beyond that, the Kimberley, I think for me, the Kimberley, there's a number of highlights really in the Kimberley. It's the various forms of rock art, from the Guion rock art to the Wodgina rock art to the contact art, to see how stories are told by different people and different cultures at different times in our history. And then more so to visit places like horizontal waterfalls, which is an incredible phenomenon that occurs almost nowhere else in the world. And to go to places like Montgomery Reef, where this 400 square mile reef pops out the water at low tide, and you take the zodiacs and drive up the river, and there's these cascading waterfalls that come over the side of the reef. there's things that happen there too in the Kimberley as a result of tidal changes that really happen nowhere else in the world. So very, very special in terms of experiencing these destinations and what makes them unique.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And those are all excellent reasons to love those places. And I'm with you on all of those points as well. And would love to explore the Kimberley region more. I've been there with regular cruise ships in regular ports, but going there on an expedition, you just go into so much more depth for it. So that would be amazing. So my next question for you is about wildlife. We sort of touched on this already a little bit, but what kind of wildlife can you see here, and can you get close enough to any of it to see it well or take a good photo?
I think the Pacific, to start off with the Pacific, the a lot of beyond the birds. I mean, obviously above the water, I think the variety in birds and nesting birds and bird species is fantastic. But you know, below the water is really where the wildlife comes in its own in terms of what you're seeing underwater when you're going snorkeling or diving, all the fish, all the corals, the soft corals, the sponges, parrotfish. There's an endless amount. The Pacific Islands, and again, above the water, you notice that cultural change. Below the water, it's similar. You actually notice a change as you go from east to west in the Pacific. You go from more hard corals and less color, and as you go towards the west, it becomes more soft corals and more color, and slowly a greater diversity in the actual water as well. So it's an interesting almost migration as you move through the Pacific, how the destinations change, and the fish life and things that you're seeing actually change. Up in the Kimberley, of course, what's fantastic is great opportunities to see crocodiles. Crocodiles, quite close. There's a lot of fantastic bird life, from the Brahminy kites to the eagles. There's also a lot of I think what's fascinating really about the Kimberley too is actually the geology. A lot of the geology, the rock formations, the structure, the age of the rocks. There's a lot of incredible history with the Kimberley too, in terms of the people that live there. And you may not be seeing those people that actually lived in the Kimberley, but their artwork and the way you interpret the artwork really gives you an incredible insight into how they lived, how they survived, how they moved, the difference between the dry season and the wet season. So really fantastic stuff. In the Amazon, in terms of wildlife, yes, when you're out in the Zodiac cruises, and you're in smaller tributaries, obviously we're looking for sloths, we're looking for scarlet macaws, we're looking for a variety of bird life, monkeys, pink dolphins. Obviously, there's no guarantee that these can be seen close, but in many occasions, you do get fantastic encounters that are really very, very good in terms of the visibility and the viewing experience.
Wow, there are a lot of incredible animals to see in those areas. I've been to those areas and seen a lot of those animals as well, and think the wildlife is definitely one of the big highlights. And the same with the other aspects. Going there on a major cruise line is great and you see a lot, but going there on an expedition is just a whole other level. It's just the best way to see everything in a way that is not harming the area, it's not harming the wildlife, the inhabitants, but it's letting you get that little bit closer and become really immersed in the areas you visit. So thank you so much for talking with me about these fascinating other areas that you cruise to, Robin.
Thank you, Karen. Absolute pleasure.
Well, that's it for this episode. We're going to come back with one more show, and the last one is going to be all about giving you tips for expedition cruising with Seabourn and the sort of things you should take with you or that you would need in different parts of the world to fully enjoy it and be fully prepared. So thank you again to Robin, and that's it from us for now, and we'll see you all next time. Bon voyage!